Welcome to Biography Central. You are listening to Life of Sri Ramakrishna, a complete biography. Chapter 12. Return to Kamarpukur and marriage. Misfortune seldom comes singly. Sarada Devi had already experienced many. She had hardly recovered from the pangs of bereavement for her eldest son when the news reached her at Kamarpukur that Gadadhar, her youngest and dearest son, had given up worship and all other duties in the Dakshineswar temple and was behaving to all intents and purposes like a madman. She heard that he shunned company and frequented lonely places, and that his every act bespoke insanity. Naturally, the news made Sarada Devi, as well as Rameshwar, extremely anxious. They ascribed this malady to nervous prostration, symptoms of which, they thought, had been manifested during his boyhood and youth by his trances. Chandra again and again wrote to Dakshineswar asking Sri Ramakrishna to come to Kamarpukur, where under her maternal care and in the salubrious climate of the country his strained nerves might be soothed and his health regained. Sri Ramakrishna obeyed the call. The anxious mother found him restless and indifferent to the affairs of the world, with a veil of sorrow and gloom overshadowing his once bright face. He was no longer attracted by anything agreeable. His former companions and friends were of no more interest to him, and the village of Kamarpukur, which once seemed so lovely and picturesque, appeared now dull and commonplace. His buoyancy had left him, and in its stead there was pain and anguish of mind, manifested in his weeping and the frequent calls for mother. Poor Chandra was totally upset. She did not know the cause of this new illness, and all her attempts to console her dear son proved futile. In conjunction with medicine, various occult cures were tried. Religious rites were performed to avert any probable disaster, and exorcists were consulted to pronounce on his case. Notwithstanding all these efforts, Sri Ramakrishna was at times overwhelmed with the same feelings as those of the Dakshineswar days when he was struggling to obtain a vision of the Divine Mother. The agonizing, burning sensations of Dakshineswar were repeated. Never before had the people of Kamarpukur marked in him such great zeal for God, such absence of fear, such indifference to everything worldly, such determination to surmount every obstacle that stood in the way of attaining his goal. Sarada Devi, in her anxiety, consulted an expert exorcist. The master told of this later. One day an exorcist came and gave me some charmed water to smell, saying that if I were under the influence of an evil spirit, it would instantly leave me. But the experiment was a sad failure. Then, with the help of some specialists, a spirit was invoked. It said to the exorcist present that I was neither under the influence of any spirit, nor had I been suffering from any illness. Then it warned me against using too much betel nut, since I wanted to be a sadhu. Really, I was very fond of it, but I gave it up after this admonition. We have already said that there are 2 cremation grounds at Kamarpukur. These are generally shunned by the villagers, even at daytime, as haunted places. Consequently, they are very lonely and, as such, exceedingly fit for spiritual exercises. Being places where the last vestige of the human body is dropped, not only do they always remind one of the evanescence of this world and all its enjoyments, but at the same time automatically turn one's mind to thoughts of God and the other world. Hence, cremation grounds have in India always been invested with a sort of unique holiness, and they are often selected as places for meditation, especially by the Tantrika Sadhakas. It is the favorite abode of Kali, the all-destroying mother of the universe, and devotees believe that by practicing in such sacred places, they will reach their cherished goal the sooner. Sri Ramakrishna intended to practice stern tapasya and chose one of those places for this purpose. He began to spend whole days and a great part of every night there in worship and meditation. Gradually, his relatives and neighbors came to know of this and of his many extraordinary visions while meditating there. The anxious mother often sent Rameshwar to call him back. Rameshwar dared not approach the place and called him from a distance. A few months' stay at Kamarpukur did Sri Ramakrishna much good, and he recovered his normal state of mind. His restlessness subsided, and he ceased to weep. It is not difficult to divine the cause of this. For from his own utterances and from the testimony of his relatives, we can infer that as a result of his strenuous sadhana, he must have had visions of the Divine Mother again. His mother and relatives were greatly relieved. Of course, he had certain peculiarities yet, such as passing much time in the cremation ground, sitting naked while worshipping or meditating, manifesting annoyance if disturbed at devotions, and showing a particular fondness for spiritual pursuits, but these had been characteristic of him. Sri Ramakrishna was now 23 years of age, and he was as indifferent as ever to all worldly concerns. His mother and brother began to plan to interest him in domestic affairs. Their first thought was naturally of marriage, a tie which he could not disregard. Once married, his mind would not soar so high, and the responsibility of maintaining a family would soon, they thought, steady him. So they began to search for a bride, and blamed themselves for not having thought earlier of this solution for their troubles. Messengers were sent to the neighboring villages in search of a bride, but with no success. According to the prevalent custom of society, it was impossible for them to secure a girl of the type they desired, without a proper dowry, and they were too poor for that. The search was vigorously continued, but with no better result. This threw Sarada Devi and Rameshwar into despair. Gadadhar had purposely been kept in the dark about these negotiations lest he should take them amiss. But he was too clever for them. He was not long in discovering the whole plot, but far from thwarting it, he seemed to welcome the idea. He made merry as boys do at the prospect of some happy incident in the family. Was it because he already knew that such was the Divine Mother's dispensation, or was it in mere spirit of fun? Though the average person may take the latter view, we have weighty reasons to believe that the former hypothesis alone was true. Sri Ramakrishna found his mother and brother in a dejected state, and inquiring into the matter learned that their failure to get a bride for him was the cause of their worry. At this he said in a semi-conscious mood, "It is useless to try here and there. Go to Jarambati, and there you will find the bride providentially reserved for me in the house of Ram Chandra Mukhopadhyay." Though his mother and brother did not attach much importance to this statement, they sent a man to that village, who returned with the report that it was true that Ram Chandra had a girl, but though she might otherwise be a good match for Sri Ramakrishna, she was too young, being only 5 years old. But Chandra agreed to accept the girl, as no other bride was available. Everything was settled in a few days. It is to be noted that in those days, child marriages used to take place, and the child would be either at maternal home or at the married home until she grew up. Consummation of marriage, that is, physical intimacy, was not allowed until the bride grew up and she attained an age to carry on with the marital aspects of life. So an auspicious day was fixed for the marriage ceremony, and Sri Ramakrishna was married to the girl, whose name was Sarada Devi. Rameshwar had to pay a dowry of 300 rupees. After the ceremony was over, Sarada Devi was greatly comforted. She firmly believed that the marriage would be good for Sri Ramakrishna, and she was glad that her mad son had gone through the ceremony cheerfully. But her happiness was marred a little by a trifling incident. Being poor, she had borrowed some ornaments from her friends in the Laha family, and with them bedecked the bride on the night of the marriage. When, a few days later, the time came for returning those ornaments, she had not the heart to take them from the unsuspecting girl. She was thinking over the matter when Sri Ramakrishna said he would look to it. When a young wife was asleep, he took those ornaments from her so cleverly that she did not know it. The ornaments were sent back to the Laha family. The girl, on awakening, complained that her ornaments were missing. Sarada Devi took her in her arms and comforted her with tearful eyes, saying, "My darling, Gadadhar will give you better ornaments hereafter." The girl's uncle, who had come to see her that day, was much displeased at this incident and took her home at once. All this pained Sarada Devi very much, but Sri Ramakrishna said jokingly, "Whatever they may say or do now, they cannot annul the marriage anyway." After his marriage, Sri Ramakrishna stayed at Kamarpukur for about a year and a half. Sarada Devi would not allow him to leave her until he was completely cured, for she feared that he might have a relapse. Once during this period, he went to his father-in-law's house, and after a few days' stay, there brought his bride home. He was becoming anxious to return to Dakshineswar to resume his work there. The poverty at home must have urged him to do so. Taking leave of his mother and brother, he set out for Dakshineswar. I hope you like this chapter. We need volunteers and sponsors to create content with even better quality and with more variety. If you wish to join this initiative as a volunteer or sponsor, please click the links given in description below. To help us reach more viewers, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Biography Central. Thank you for your time. It means a lot. Namaste.